Here's our lesson, Indiana Essentials 4.AT.6, which means 4th grade algebraic thinking, 6th standard. The reason that I am doing this mini lesson with you today is because you need to be able to write algebraic expressions that model certain situations. And you also need to be able to identify and write expressions. So how we're going to go about that today is we're going to practice pulling information from different situations and form equations. So we're going to take a look at several examples here where we have to come up with an algebraic expression or an algebraic equation that represents a problem. Now, we aren't going to solve this equation, but we are going to record it as we see fit with the information that we're given. So let's take a look at the first problem as our example that reads, if Beth's allowance is $2.50 more than Kesha's, then Beth's allowance is, and we have a line. So if we take a look here, they show you that Kesha's allowance is $D, and here's Beth. We don't know what her allowance is exactly, other than the fact that it tells us that hers is $2.50 more than Kesha's. So we know that Kesha's is going to be represented by letter D. So if we look at the equation that they came up with, letter D stands for Kesha's allowance plus $2.50. So technically this is going to be our equation to represent how we would go about finding Beth's allowance. So see, all we did was take the D for Kesha, place it here. We took the $2.50 more. The fact that it says more tells me that I'm going to add, and that's all the information that we have to plug in to that equation or expression. So let's take a look at number 2. If Leon gets a raise of $5 per week, then his salary is, and we have to come up with an equation. So let's take a look at what they've given us over here. So they've got a little fake check here that says it's going to pay to the order of Leon, whatever his name is, $5. It says Leon's salary is $S per week. So how would we go about writing an expression to represent what they've given us? So we may say that S, which would be Leon's salary, plus $5. And that would be it. That would be our equation. So S stands for his salary, and he's getting a raise, so that means he's getting more money. So that's how we have the addition sign there. And then we put the $5. So let's take a look at our third problem here. If Allie's grandfather is 50 years older than Allie, then Allie is blank years old. So we've got 50 years older. That's a key phrase. Over here, if we look at our diagram, we have Allie's grandfather is G years old, and here's Allie. So how would we write that as an equation? Would be G for Allie's grandfather minus 50. Now you might be thinking, well, how come we didn't do Allie minus or plus 50, right? We could think of it that way, but they didn't give us a letter or anything to stand for Allie. So that means that we're not going to put her in the equation for that example. So then let's take a look at number 4. 7 baskets of potatoes weigh blank pounds. So a basket of potatoes weighs p pounds. So we could write that equation as 7 times p, or we could just write 7p, which also means 7 times p. So the p represents the p pounds, and the 7 is 7 baskets. All right, so let's take a look at a few more examples here. So if we take a look at number 5, if a submarine dives 150 feet, then it will be traveling at a depth of blank feet. So we look over here at the picture. Notice we've got arrows here. It says X feet. A submarine is traveling at a depth of X feet. So how would we write this equation? The submarine is represented by the letter X. I feel like I'm on Sesame Street. The letter X today, boys and girls. Anyway, we're going to put X plus 150 as our equation. Let's take a look at number 6. The floor is divided into 5 equal size areas for gym classes. Each class has a plane area of blank feet squared. So if we take a look at our picture, we've got a gym floor, and it tells us the gym floor has an area of a square feet. So when we think about that, what are they doing? 5 equal size areas, which means that we're probably going to divide that gym floor up. So there's several different ways that we could write an equation for this particular problem, and I'm going to kind of show those to you here. So one way that we could write would be A over 5, and that basically means that we're dividing, right? Fractions are basically division problems. So this would be one way that we could write that equation. Another way would be 1/5 times A. We could also do 1/5 A. And remember, that was just another way to write 1/5 times A. We just leave out that multiplication sign. So there's lots of shortcuts with math problems that you will see over the years. Equations will change. So that was number 6. Now let's take a look. Oh, I guess I should write that. Well, I'll leave it there. Let's look at number 7. The charge for a book that is D days overdue is blank cents. So if we look over here, it says a library charges 10 cents for each overdue book. It adds an additional charge of 5 cents per day for each overdue book. So this one gets a little bit more complicated. So let's think about that for a minute. 10 cents for each overdue book, and then an additional 5 cents per day is what they charge. So there's a couple of, actually probably 3 different ways that we could go about that. So let's take a look at what that one might look like. I'll put that one in a different color so you can see it easier, and maybe I shouldn't write so big. But we could do 10 plus in parentheses, 5 times letter D. This is one way that we could do it. Another way would be 5D, which means, again, you're multiplying 5 times D, minus 10, or we could do 10 plus 5D. And this should be a plus sign. Sorry about that. So there we have 3 different possibilities for algebraic expressions for number 7. So now let's take a look at number 8. If Kevin spends 2/3 of his allowance on a book, then he has blank dollars left. So over here we've got Kevin's allowance is X dollars. So again, he's going to spend 2/3 of his allowance. So how might we write that? Well, if he spends 2/3, he only has 1/3 left. So when we go to write our equation, we could write 1/3 times X. This would be one way. Another way would be 1/3 X, or X over 3. So again, there are several different ways that we can write expressions. So let's summarize. Words and phrases help us determine what to do with information. More than, divided into or divided by, fewer, times as much are examples of those types of phrases. So we've got to pay attention to those. Variables, remember, are letters in equations, and those represent a missing number in an equation or expression. Okie dokie.